This call is being recorded.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. Tonight's call is called Being Resilient. This is our 14th episode. You never know how strong you are until you're being strong. It's the only choice that you have. That's such a powerful quote. I want to go ahead and repeat it. You never know how strong you are until being strong is the only choice that you have. I want to thank everyone for taking the time to come on the call. Once again, this is episode or call number 14. It's called Being Resilient. The playback number, if you want to go back and listen to this tomorrow or if you want to share this with anyone, the playback number is 718-867-6700. Or you can go to www.powerinAhalfhour.com. For all the people that this is your first time or if you've only heard one or two of the messages, I really challenge you to go back and listen to some of the old calls. They all have pretty good information on them. You could subscribe to it in the iTunes store. That way you'll get the calls directly to your podcast system on your phone every week. If we're not friends on Facebook, go ahead and friend me. My name on Facebook is Mark Starr. That's Mark and Starr. For those of you that want to take on reading this year, I can't even stress how important reading is and just to improving yourself. I challenge you to join the Lady Named Pearl book club that's on Facebook. You can just do a search for it, A Lady Named Pearl, or you can message me on Facebook and I'll go ahead and just tell me you want to join the group and I'll go ahead and add you to that group. The book that we're reading this month is The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. And we'll be discussing that book. I'm not sure if it's next. I think it's in 2 weeks. But it's a phenomenal book club. I highly suggest that you join it and you read this book. I know that in the group, Pearl posted the audio version of the book. For those of you that don't like to read or don't have the time to actually read, you can actually listen to the audio version of this book. It's not a long book, but it's a very impactful book. And then the last message before we get started, join my daily message system. It's called Be Better Daily. All you got to do is text Be Better, BETTERDAILY to 411247, and every day it'll send you a inspiring text message. It's a free system that I do, so go ahead and join it. Now, I would like to share with you guys 4 stories about 4 amazing people that you may have heard of before, all right? The first story is in 1994, J.K. Rowling had just gotten a divorce, was on government aid, and could barely afford to feed her baby. This was 3 years before her first book was published, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. When she was shopping it out, she was so broke that she couldn't even afford a computer or even the cost of photocopying her novel. So she manually typed the 90,000-word novel for each publisher that she sent it to. It was rejected 12 times before a small publisher gave it a second chance. And we know the rest of that story. Now she's probably one of the richest women in the world, has more money than the Queen of England, may even have more money than Oprah. The second story. Stephen King was beyond broke and struggling when he first started trying to write. He lived in a trailer with his wife, and they both worked multiple jobs to support their family while pursuing their craft. They both were writers. They were so poor that they had to borrow clothes for their wedding and got rid of their telephone because it was too expensive. Stephen King received over 60, that's right, 60 rejection letters before selling his first short story. Once again, and we know the rest because it's history. Number 3, Tyler Perry had a rough childhood. He was physically and sexually abused growing up, got kicked out of high school, and tried to commit suicide twice. One as a preteen and again at age 22. At age 23, he moved to Atlanta and took up odd jobs as he started working on his acting career. In 1992, he wrote, produced, and starred in his first theater production, I Know I've Been Changed. Tyler Perry put all of his savings into the show, and it failed miserably. The theater run lasted just one weekend, and only 30 people came to watch it. We got more than 30 people on this call. Tyler Perry kept at it and working more odd jobs and often slept in his car to get by. 6 years later, Tyler Perry finally broke through when on his 7th run, the show became a success. And once again, you guys know the end of that story. The last story I'm going to share with you guys tonight. Colonel Harlan Sanders was fired from a variety of jobs before he started cooking chicken in his roadside Shell service station in 1930 when he was 40 years old during the Great Depression. His gas station didn't actually have a restaurant, so he served diners in his attached personal living quarters. He perfected his recipe over the next 10 years and moved to a bigger location. In the 1950s, he was forced to close his business down and he was essentially broke. All he had to survive on was a $105 a month pension. He set out to find restaurants who would franchise his secret recipe. He drove around and slept in his car and was rejected more than 1,000 times. 1,000 times before finding his first partner. All he was trying to do is get someone to give him 5 cents for every piece of chicken that they sold. He got rejected 1,000 times. He did this when he was over 64 years old. Now, what is the one thing that these 4 famous people have in common? They all had a tremendous amount of resiliency. I'm telling you, I've studied so many successful people, and the one trait that every single one of them had that attained a large amount of success was resiliency. They never quit. They never gave up. No matter how hard life came at them, they never gave up. Now, according to the dictionary, resilience is the ability of a substance or object to spring back into shape. The capacity to recover quickly from difficulties. Resilience is a necessity. Hear what I'm saying? Resilience is a necessity for success. Success demands resilience. Now, we are born with a high level of resilience, but life conditions us to be less resilient. We are taught not to risk failure or not to push too hard, so we acquire a learned helplessness. Now, some of you guys might not know what learned helplessness is, so I'm going to explain it to you. It's when an animal or a person that received unavoidable pain at some point in their life learn to deal with that pain even when the pain becomes avoidable. Now, during the 1960s, they had a research experiment where they tested dogs, and basically, I guess this was probably before animal cruelty laws. They shocked these dogs, but the dogs had no escape. They just had to take the shock. The dogs got so used to the shock that when they did give the dogs a way out, a way to escape, they just dealt with the shock. And that's what happens to so many people in life. You've gotten beaten up so many times in life, and when you didn't have a choice out, and then now when you do have a choice out, you just learn to deal with the shocks. They did that same experiment on human beings with sound. And human beings acted the same way as the dogs did, as any other animal would do. Learned helplessness. Now, here's an example of a child's resiliency. When a child is about 10 or 12 months, they begin to consider the possibility of walking. The child sees the older kids and adults walking around, and they begin to picture the possibility of doing it themselves. Their desire is reinforced when their parents hold out their arms or put something in front of them that they want. The child begins to try and take some steps, which results in a fall and more repeated falls. But a child doesn't associate falling with failing. All a child is thinking is that I will get up and try again. A child is only concerned with getting that object that's in front of them or reaching their parents' outstretched arms. That's all a child is concerned about. If you think a child is sitting there thinking about, man, I fell, I'm not going to walk again, how many of you guys know any kids that started trying to walk, fell down, and they said, well, you know what, I think I'm just going to sit down or crawl for the rest of my life? No. Child keeps